Hello, Miss Price.
How are you doing, Mr. Taylor? Are you staying cool over there?
So, I'll say cool. Can you just quickly introduce yourself?
Yes. So my name is Kalinda Price, and I've been teaching at Los Altos High School for 15 years. Total time teaching has been 20 years under my belt for teaching.
Right on. So, as you know, in the recent um, debates we've been having with the community, to put it lightly, we've been talking about getting SROs off of campus, and why having them. And for those who don't know, SROs are the police that are on school campuses. Um, but why having them on campus is more detrimental to kids than beneficial. And I believe your story will shed some light as to why. So could you please go ahead and share it?
All right. So one incident with having the police on campus was dating back to 2017. And during this time, there was a situation where a student of mine had supervised lunches per the request of his family so that he could have some outside of classroom social interactions with his peers. And so we agreed that he would have supervised lunches with me in or near my classroom, and then I would walk him to his parents' car when they arrived on campus. And there was one particular event where there was an incident going on. And at the time, we were unaware, or I was unaware, that the situation was happening. So as I was walking the student, normally I would stop in our East Drive and just watch as he would walk to his parents' car. But this particular incident, I felt the need to go with him completely because there was a lot of police presence on campus as we were walking to the car, as well as when I got to the administration driveway. And so as I was walking there, I could see the lead officer, who I don't know his particular title or his exact title, speaking or running the license plate of the student's parents. So I knew it was important for me to identify who I was and what this student, to make sure that they knew that this student was not involved. And so I introduced myself, I introduced the student, I told the police person in charge, who I was and what was happening or what have you. And so the student got in the car, and as I was going to be walking away, he told us both. He told the parents that they could not leave, and he told me that I had to stay. And in spite of the fact that I introduced who I was, so I was taken aback by like, well, what's going on? And so as I proceeded, he was like, you need to stay right there. Basically, you stay right there or I'm going to arrest you. And so the parents was like, well, what are you talking about? We just got on campus, and what does she have to do with it? This is my son's teacher, And so he went back and forth with them and said, well, you know exactly what's going on. And, we know your history, so forth and so on. And you're not going to go anywhere. And if you move, we're going to arrest you. So I was offended by it because I identified who I was. And I just felt like all the, respect or power as a person who worked on campus, whose job is, one, to take care of our students, that just went out the door right then and there. And so as I further assessed the situation, I felt like, knowing now after I saw some things play out, oh, so the people who are involved happen to be African American. So does he assume that I have something to do with it because I'm African American? And now I know why you're keeping this family or what have you, although I just watched them come onto campus to pick up their son, and their son was with me the entire time. So as everything is going on, I'm watching, and the students who was involved in the situation, their parent was sitting over there on a bench, and I guess they were trying to de-escalate the situation, and you heard the parent and the student, and then naturally the other parent gets upset and wants to go and check on their livelihood, and then to watch him being taken down by a group of officers. And so naturally you feel even more uncomfortable. So after they kind of, I guess, de-escalate the situation, or the person, the lead officer, gets his mind wrapped around everything, because I felt like he lost total control and he was very unprofessional. Just the fact that you're arguing back and forth with a parent and I've already identified who I was and let you know that they had nothing to do with this. And of course, I got shut up by the officer or whatever, and again was threatened. Um, he eventually let me go. He shooed me away, let me do my job. I got to do my job. I can't remember the exact words because I have to look at the part of the recording, because I did record the end of it once I felt comfortable that if I didn't move, something bad, like seriously, would happen. And so he shooed me away. And so because he had to go and do his job is what he said. And so I went to walk towards the principal, who they actually had held up, and they wouldn't allow her to move, to try to tell her what was happening and see if she could go and confirm with the person in charge, or the officer in charge, that they had nothing to do with it. And yes, in fact, she did have the student with her. They would not allow her to do anything as well. So of course, after the situation, I felt, like I said, very upset, very disrespected, and I felt helpless at that particular time, because the students are looking to you, and there's absolutely nothing you can do in that particular situation. So I went back to my room very upset about the situation, and I felt like as a teacher I failed, because they looked to you for a place of refuge, and there was nothing I could do at that particular time. And so ultimately what you feel is, the same fear as with this situation as you do even when you're outside of school, just that fear when you're approached by an officer. Well, what's going to happen? And that's a fear that I didn't have once upon a time. But after that situation and just the repeated situations that you have in today's times, you feel less and less useful or helpful, because you already know what you're up against and why you're up against it, mainly because of who you are, or let me just say not who you are, the skin you're in, which that can't be changed. But I know that for me, I'm an upstanding citizen, and because of that, and I know I live my life on a straight and narrow, I always feel like, I'm going to defend myself in this situation. But in today's times, and just as you see the things happening in today's world, that that's just not a smart thing to do. And you have to kind of bow down in protection of you hopefully living. And so when it comes to this, although when I think about our current SRO that's on campus, I have no qualms, and probably many people don't have any qualms with the officer. You have to think about how students feel when officers are present. I know certain officers that come on campus, it's very uncomfortable. And I, try to do things to try to fill them out and see how they're, who they are, how they are, or just their demeaning is very off-putting. And so if I'm, as a teacher, who should have all the protections in the world, being on campus or whatever, feel uncomfortable, imagine how they must feel. And then thinking about just the daily reports that students give about how they're treated as they're on their way to campus. That's another big thing about being followed or being harassed or anything, or being accused of doing something, just the daily things. So like I said, this is no slight to our current SRO who has been great in terms of personality and on how he engages with with students and staff or whatever, but when you think about past SROs, you know, there is a sense of disconnectedness. And then thinking about people's experiences or students' experiences off campus and the negative experiences that they had, I really don't think that it's very essential for them to be there if school is supposed to be a place of refuge and safety. And I know while growing up, I always look forward to going to school. And so if we want students to feel comfortable and feel like school is a place of refuge, I just think that we need to change the way we go in terms of having the police presence on campus. And I think that if there's going to be a police presence on campus, they need to change the way in which they connect with students.
Yeah, that's put fabulously. You know, like you said, you know, off-campus interaction also affects how your on-campus interactions go. I remember I would be followed to school. I'd be stopped by the SRO back when I went to Los Altos High, just going to class, you know, and I've always just had a very uneasy feeling with police officers being around, be it my home or where I'm trying to get my education. Um,
Right.
and it really it messes with your mentals, you know. And this is just one story, you know, and I have plenty, and so many other kids have these same stories, which is why, you know, in the current time we have, it's just important that we share them. And
Right. And
help.
I know how I can honestly say, and having a situation on campus, even prior to the one that I reported, because there was an incident on campus that required police presence. Um, I'm not sure if this officer was an SRO or whatever, but I remember there was one time I was taking a call from a parent, and it was one that I could not have inside my classroom. So I stepped out and I was on my cell phone, and the way that the officer spoke to me about being on my cell phone. And I had to let her know that I'm not a student, I'm a teacher, and I'm speaking to my parent. And just that whole interaction right there, I'm like, was that necessary? You know, for you to speak to someone in that manner. And how I felt at that particular time, even though, you know, I wasn't afraid, but imagine if I was a student and you talked to me in that way. And it was just unnecessary for that interaction to take place over a cell phone. And I think that was during the time when the cell phone policy had like really got set off, where they said no cell phones on campus or what have you, you know. But at the same time, it was just unnecessary for someone to speak to you in that manner, you know, because you were on your cell phone, you know. And so imagine if I were a student, and you know how students already have a fear sometimes of adults, and then you turn around and it's an officer, you know, who has a weapon, you know, not that the weapon was drawn or anything, but it was just unnecessary. Like we're humans, and you should speak to us as though we are humans, and in a respectful manner. I didn't disrespect you. I was simply, my back was turned to you and I was on a phone, and for you to talk that in that manner, you know, I don't speak to students that way, you
It's
know.
the
And I feel like,
escalation.
yeah, you could have escalated that situation. So yeah, and I said, as a teacher there, we don't even talk to the students like that, you know. So what gives you the right to talk to a student in that manner, or anyone in that manner? So it could have gone, you know, far worse had I responded or whatever. But you know, I try to be professional as often as I possibly can. But it was very upsetting also to be in that situation, you know, just to know that it happens, and it's just unnecessary.
Well, I can't thank you enough for sharing your story with us. Um, you're an amazing teacher, and you're an amazing influence on our community. So thank you.
Well, no problem, Mr. Taylor. Anything I can do.
All right. Take care.